All right. We are live Wednesday, June 21st. I'm going to be mainstreaming this live. Matt is off on some vacation. He's getting some recovery, some rest, and some fun in. So tonight, you're going to get me. If you get sick of listening to me, well, you can always shut it off. So tonight, we're going to dive into a couple different topics based on training and where you should be in your training. A lot of times people approach training as sort of this one-dimensional thing, and they just do one program, one modality, whether it's cardio, running, weightlifting, and they fail to kind of experience and explore and incorporate other aspects of their training into their own programs. And a lot of times when people get into this one-minded kind of one program sense way, it can also alter their kind of results. Now, if you're someone who is on a program that's written for you by a trainer or coach or anyone who's have our programs, we're going to have an in-depth guide to what that program is going to look like, and it's going to have multiple facets to the program. You're going to get conditioning, you're going to get cardio work, you're going to get strength training, you're going to get recovery, you're going to get nutrition. That's a whole built program for someone. And the general population should be looking at the same kind of structure when it comes to their exercise program. Now, if you look into any men's fitness or health magazine, you'll see programs that are written that'll say, oh, gain muscle with this program, and this is the best program. And you look up and it's, your traditional bodybuilding split program, arms one day, chest another day, legs one day, shoulders on and on and on. Same thing if you look at a runner's magazine, they're going to tell you the best program for runners. Now, this is all good for desired individuals. Now, when it comes to, that program, what a lot of people sometimes miss in their program are the simple things, are the basic exercises and movements that everyone should be doing, but programs tend to get nuanced into fancy stuff. Another way we kind of see this is if you open up your social media and go to any fitness influencer page, you're going to see these elaborate exercises that people are doing to try to get that shock and wow aspect and be like, oh, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing certain exercises. Now, I'm not bashing on any exercise someone creates or wants to design when it comes to a movement standpoint, but a lot of that stuff is really just fluff, and it looks cool, but does it really serve a purpose or get someone to where they want to be? Most likely it's not. And it's going to come down to the basics of movement patterns. So you have a hinge. From the hip hinge, you got a squat pattern, you have a pushing pattern, you have a vertical pushing pattern, you have a pulling pattern, right? So you're going to kind of cover those main bases. And a lot of times, walk into any gym or ask someone what they're doing from a program standpoint, and they're doing smaller muscle groups. They're doing chest, they're doing arms, they're doing legs, but in a way that it's more machine based and targeting one muscle group. They're doing isolated shoulder work. That stuff's all good, and there's always a place for it in a program. But if you're someone who's looking for optimal health, longevity in postural standpoint, movement standpoint, that stuff should come a lot later in a program. That should not be the emphasis of a program. And this is where people miss out on their exercise benefits because they're not doing big compound movements or full body movements in a program, and they're just kind of wasting their time doing smaller muscle groups that, as a compound, it's still a decent workout, but it's not gonna ramp it up to a point where you actually are going to sustain an adaptation to create long-term change. And that's what it comes down to whenever we're on an exercise program. It doesn't matter if it's strength training, weightlifting, running, whatever your sport is, the dose and load has to be great enough to create an adaptation in the body to create that change. So if you have low doses or low stimulus, you're not going to create any change within the system. It's just going to be at the same standpoint or less. You're not going to create any change because the stimulus isn't great enough to create that change. And this is one thing that people fail to see when it comes to the exercise world is you always have to keep increasing a stimulus to create a further adaptation. And it's a hard thing to I think people understand it's a hard thing to grasp because that means you have to add weight to a bar. You have to pick up heavier dumbbells. You have to add miles to a run. You have to decrease the time of the run. You have to change either time or intensity to create a bigger stimulus to drive the system into further adaptation. Hence why we call it progressive resistance training or progressive conditioning, because you're always progressing to that next step. And a lot of times when people get into these workout programs where they're just focusing on arms and these smaller muscle groups, you're essentially wasting your time, because those muscles, yes, they're going to give you a little stimulus, but they're not going to drive big hormonal adaptations. They're not going to drive change from a caloric or metabolic standpoint. And this is where people fail their exercise programs that they might create, or generic ones, is because they're not hitting these big compound movements over and over again. Now, for anyone listening, keep it simple, right? Squat, deadlift, bench press or push up, chin up or pull up, like those 4 things should be done multiple times a week. And I'm one that does not do the bodybuilding split. It's not ideal for any human that's looking for optimal movement, flow, capacity, posture, and performance from whether it's athletic standpoint, that's a no-go, an adaptation standpoint from a whole longevity, also no-go, or muscle increase. Because what people fail to realize is a lot of those bodybuilders are on hormones or on performance enhancing drugs that allow them to handle that much volume and do it and then recover and do it again. We need more stimulus as people who are just regular average Joes. We need more of a stimulus. So one big staple of any program should be almost squatting 2 to 3 times a week. So if you're someone looking to increase hormone profile from growth hormone, testosterone, insulin, hormones, does not matter if you're male or female, because you're going to get benefits from both. You should be squatting. Full body compound movements are going to drive the most hormone adaptation. And from that way, if you look at it, let's talk about insulin. If you're driving the hormone insulin and from a metabolic muscle standpoint, you're going to increase metabolic function because you're going to be able to dispose of the glucose that you're putting in your system, the carbohydrates that get broken down into glucose. If you're eating, let's say, a less optimal diet and you're having a more processed foods in, starting with a program that's squatting 3 times a week or doing full body movements 3 to 4 times a week, you're going to increase the muscle mass, which increase the metabolic function, which is going to increase the capacity for your body to deal with the glucose that you're putting in as you work through your nutrition side of things to drive a better health quality for yourself. And that's another fun thing to dive into, is people always get into these realms of, let me pick the easiest exercise. And yes, I know I'm going to tell you that things are going to be simple. You're going to pick simple exercises, but it's not going to be the most fun exercises. And I think a lot of people get this connotation that going to the gym should be fun. And yes, there'll be times where we can make it fun, and we'll get into that little bit later on. But the purpose of any exercise program is to drive a stimulus enough to change. And when it comes to a program or a training session, your body has to really be threatened, almost to the point where it thinks it's going to be like almost killed from a cellular level. Then it's going to create that DNA to say, hey, I need to change and build a new molecule or new tissue or a new something to be more resilient. So Don't waste your time on small muscle groups, biceps, triceps, delts. Those should not be at the top of your program list. They should not be at the beginning of a training session. Those should be at the end, and if you even get to it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they're bad exercises. I'm just saying from a standpoint of programming for optimal performance, health, and longevity, those need to be at the end. Now, of course, if you're someone who wants to have arms and develop arms, throw those in there, but make sure at the beginning you're getting your full body movements in. And one of the biggest full body movements that I love to teach, and you can do this with a dumbbell, barbell, or kettlebell. Matt's mentioned this before in some of the videos, is the hang clean. This is going to be a full body demand, and especially if you catch it in a squat position, the hang clean is going to go a long way. Now, from a strength standpoint, you can do lower reps with heavier weight to build strength, muscle, and size. If you're looking for a more metabolic or conditioning aspect of it, you can take that exercise and you can say, hey, I'm going to do 6+ reps, lighter weight, but many more rounds or styles of it to get a conditioning effect that's going to drive a heart rate. And I think this can be said for any sort of program that can be written. It's not about the exercise chosen, because a lot of our programs that we offer here through Think Fitness Life are very simple. They're going to have basic movements. We're just going to change how those movements are done from a rep standpoint, from intensity standpoint, from a hold standpoint, from a tempo standpoint, to drive what you're looking for your goal, which is going to be your adaptation. So if someone's looking for a more conditioning based training session, you're going to think more higher reps, lower rest in between, and you're going to hit compound movement. So one of these would be like a giant pairing I love to use is loaded squats for high reps. You're going to do 12 to 15 with short rest in between, and then pair that with a push-up. And this is going to be high volume, go to failure of the push-up, rest it for about a minute afterwards, and repeat that. So you're doing one exercise, rest about 30 seconds. You're going to hit that second exercise, and you're going to cycle through that 4 to 6 times. And that's going to drive a heart rate effect for conditioning, a metabolic effect, a hormonal effect, and you're going to burn more calories. If someone's looking for that response from a caloric standpoint, supersetting and programming high rep volumes with short rest in is going to be your go-to when it comes to a training program. Now, let's take that same training program and say someone wants to build muscle or strength. Squats will go to 6 reps or under. You might take a little bit longer recovery, and you might do weighted push-ups or weighted bench press. It's the same kind of concept. You're taking the same pairing. You're just manipulating the intensity of it. And that's where I think a lot of people get confused when it comes to their programming, is they think they need to change variables very quick. Many variables are going to stay in a program throughout the whole duration of a whole, maybe microcycle or macrocycle. We're talking anywhere from 1 month to 6 months. Things are going to stay the same. The intensities and the variations of that exercise might change. Now, you might take a squat and say, for the first 2 months, I'm going to do a barbell loaded front squat. The second 2 months, I'm going to do a back squat, and I'm going to load that system where it's going to be driving a full load. And then we're going to keep pushing that system to go. And I'm going to take a quick pause here. I think YouTube or Facebook's not working, so I'm going to end and reset to see if we can reload this into Facebook. So give me hopefully this gets back and this gets onto Facebook now. We'll see if we can get people to kind of get back on and pick up where they might have missed. And if you did miss it, we're talking about a programming standpoint where we're keeping things very simple, from an exercise standpoint and kind of pushing away the other exercises that are probably the second tier exercises, your bicep curls, your triceps, your smaller muscle groups, your machine exercises, your leg extensions, your hamstring curls. Like, they all have a time and place, but this is not going to be the time and place if you're looking to really drive a performance increase or any kind of increase you're looking for from a health standpoint. Like, those should be second tiered later on in the program. And then it comes to our next kind of big topic that we're going to talk about is how to set up your days so you're not going to burn yourself out. And another thing that we see very often as coaches is people do hard work every single day. And now there's a time and place for that. We can certainly do it if the recovery's there, the nutrition's there. But over time, you're going to need to drop the stimuluses and change stimuli throughout the week and throughout your program to allow proper recovery and to allow you to hit certain goals to where you want. Think of it like overdosing on or taking a lot of caffeine or cocaine. So as we go through these methods, the reaction from the brain is the stimulus is there, but there's less reaction to that stimulus. So over time, we need to increase the dosage of caffeine or cocaine or whatever drug, because it's a simple mechanism to get that threshold and that feeling again. And that's why when it comes to things like that, it's got to be more and more and more. From a caffeine standpoint, you're going to kind of reach a level where that caffeine's not going to drive an adaptation change, because the stimulus isn't great enough unless you back off, you take a week or two off of caffeine, and then you come back, right? And then that stimulus is going to be enough to trigger a threshold to fire that off. And then programming is the same way when it comes to days. And this can be either for conditioning, cardio, weight training. It's not just one facet. It's kind of how you are programming. And one group of people that really have gotten this right over time are people who train for like marathons, long distance running, because they've understood that you can't just go hard every single day in and day out, and expect a change, because your system doesn't have time to recover. And a lot of people, especially runners who are, let's say, more on the newer side of things or novice, they'll go out, and this was me at one point, and they'll be hammering miles, and they're going to say, I'm going to run my fastest mile. I'm going to try to run this every single day. Over time, there's going to be a point where your body just can't recover from the load and the force you're going to put on it. So you have these things where someone might call an easy day or a lighter day, or an easy run or a long run. When it comes to training in the weight room or anywhere else, it's got to be the same concept. We have things called a developmental day. These are going to be your high volume, your high intensities days. This is where we're turning that dial, and we are going to push the threshold of training a lot. We're going to pour on a big load, and we're going to really kind of make that system hate itself. It's going to be a kind of a shitstorm of a nasty feeling of a grind. This might be, if you're a runner, your threshold days, you're really pushing it. A day after a developmental day is either going to be a stimulation day, which is moderate intensity, or if you're using higher load, you can use lower volume. So you're turning the dial back a little bit, but you're still getting a slight stimulus for the system to be pushed in a certain direction, but not as hard as the first developmental day. And then the last day we use are regeneration days. And these, for a lot of times, for lifters or for runners, these are the easy days. These are where you're going into more aerobic days. It might be circuit work. It might be light jog, light running, light bike, where you're keeping your heart rate between probably 120 and 130, depending on your age. So it's a very easy day, and allowing the system to regenerate and just get good blood flow and circulation in. Now, on the regeneration days, from a cardio standpoint, this is where our programs, we write a lot of regen days. Usually there are, if we're on a 4-day program and we're training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to be that regeneration day, and Saturday is going to be the regeneration day. This is the day that you can throw those second tier arm exercises in. You can throw the biceps in, the lateral raises in, the exercises or areas that you want to work on that are not going to be your heavy hitter exercises. You can throw these in on these days because that accumulating volume is not going to really have a big impact on the system overall. And it's another day. If someone wants to throw arms in, a lot of my clients and athletes love to throw arms in and they feel good after it. Perfect. That's another day. You get another 2 days of arms to throw in there, but you're not going to be taxing the system too much. And when it comes to those days, people are missing those days in their program. I've been guilty of this where I've gone hard for almost 5 days straight in certain programs, and at the end of the week, my body is definitely feeling it. I am pretty beat down. I need a couple days to recover, but it's in those when I don't take a regeneration day, I get to my Thursday, Friday grouping of lifts, and it gets hard because my body's still kind of recovering from whatever hard conditioning day I did on that Wednesday. So when looking at a standpoint of programming, so you have your simple exercises, your base ones, your squats, your deadlifts, your cleans, your explosive movements, your push-ups, your full body compound movements that are going to hit mass muscle groups. This is where we want to hit on the developmental days and the stimulation days. And then on the regeneration days, that's when you're going to get your more cardiovascular conditioning in. And our first promo code of the night is going to be Program 27. So this is for the contest of the home gym giveaway that we are sponsoring. You can find it on the link is posted. It does not look like the link might have made it to Facebook as of now, but it's going to be, if you go to Think Fitness Life, there's a giveaway for the home gym. It's up to $1,500. Whatever your liking is going to be for home equipment, we will guide you and assist you. And in the process of that home gym, if you do need that programming or the coaching, we are readily there to assist you with that and get you going on that program to get to your optimal performance and where you want to be. Because at the end of the day, no matter what a piece of equipment you get, it's going to drive your motivation, your discipline to become that better person and that version of yourself that you want to be through the modalities. And that's going to be where we're looking at programming standpoint. Is the next thing is heart rate training. So a lot of people, if they haven't used heart rate training, they've probably heard of things like Orange Theory or Zone 2 training. This is going to be, yet again, what most runners or cardio event athletes are going to understand. And most people are going to wear some sort of smartwatch, Apple Watch, Garmin, even the Whoop has it. It's going to track that heart rate. And this is a good measure to use as a training assistance during your workouts. I use this with most of my clients who have it. I'm always tracking heart rates to see where their heart rates are, to see where I can push the system. Now, from my coaching standpoint, it's going to be more for a strength standpoint or conditioning standpoint, we're going to work, depending on their goals, into more of that moderate to hard zone 3, zone 4 zones of heart rate. Now, for those who aren't familiar, zone 1 is going to be a very light heart rate. It's going to be between 50 to 60% of your heart rate max. And if you don't know your heart rate max, a very simple one is just going to be 220 minus your age. It's very basic, but it kind of gives you a standpoint of where you might be. And there's other equations to put in for heart rate. So that's easy. So that's zone 1. Zone 2, where most people are going to hear about zone 2 cardio, is 60 to 70% of your heart rate max. This is something that should be done where you can almost keep carrying a conversation on. and still be pedaling on a bike or doing a jog or whatever modality you choose. Zone 3 is going to be moderate. So zone 2 and zone 3 are very kind of similar when it comes to heart rate. So zone 3 is going to be 70 to 80% of your heart rate max. This is going to be where you probably can still talk, but you're going to take a little bit extra longer pauses between breaths as you're trying to kind of catch your breath and breathing. Then we starting to get into zone 4, which is hard, 80 to 90%. And then zone 5 is your max. Think these things are going to be your sprints, your all-out efforts. You're hitting probably 40-second plus at a nasty heart rate, an all-out push. That's what's really going to drive your heart rate up. So from a training standpoint, when it comes to the workout, we're going to be more, if you're looking for more caloric burn or metabolic demand and muscle mass, and you're in the high rep range, we're going to expect your heart rate to be in that hard zone, 80 to 90%, because we're going to drive the system up into those ranges of heart rate. Now, there's always this back and forth is, can you get a cardio effect from strength training? And yes, you can if you have that right program, the right superset, the right pairings of muscle groups or circuits. You can 100% drive a cardiovascular effect, which is mainly going to be, especially if you're using resistance, it's going to be from a myocardial uptake. So your ability of your heart to use oxygen and pump oxygen out to those muscles, which is going to provide a little bit different training effect than slow cardio, but that's fine. That's where we're going to get the variations, because a lot of people forget the heart's a muscle too, and cardio trains it to pump blood efficiently out, but strength training at higher intensities and short rest and explosive movements, that's going to train the heart to be explosive and push a lot of blood out in a short amount of time, or one beat, to force all that pressure out. And it's going to have a different training effect on how the heart walls are going to develop. So we're building overall system. It's same thing if you did bicep curls for 30 reps and for 10 sets at a low weight. You're not really going to feel much. You're going to get a slight burn, but it's not going to drive any sort of real big heart rate. Now, if you take a heavy weight and you get explosive bicep curls for 6 to 8 reps with short rest in between, you're going to drive a bigger heart rate because you're asking more of demand. And that's all we're going to look for when we're asking to train for heart rates. And if you are one who has a Apple Watches are great to track it, do a circuit, see where your heart rate is. Now, your heart rate might go up to 140, 150. I got clients that I love doing certain circuits, and I have certain pairings that I know that I'm going to drive a heart rate into the 160s. I let them recover back down sub 130. Once they're recovered sub 130, I know I can start that next round. And that's one way to kind of see how well you are conditioned, is by getting that heart rate up into higher zones and then seeing how long it takes to drop back to sub 130. For older people, it might be sub 120. The quicker it drops down, we can drop beats, the more efficient the heart is at recovering. The longer it takes at dropping beats, the more inefficient it is. So for someone first starting on like a conditioning program or an exercise program, say take 5 exercises. If you're coming from a strength training, say squat, push up, lunge, some sort of row, and a front plank. Do those consecutively with no break. See where your heart rate is. Rest until your heart rate is sub 130, and then repeat that again. And each time you're going to get that heart rate is going to be reactive and jump back to where it needs to be so you can perform those exercises. And that's one great way from a metabolic standpoint, from a heart rate standpoint and conditioning standpoint, that we like to program workouts in to kind of get the best bang for your buck. So we're not sitting there doing a squat set of 10 reps, getting on the phone, and then, sitting there scrolling through Instagram or texting for 5 minutes and then doing another set. That's a complete waste of time, especially when it comes to people doing like arms, like bicep curls and triceps, waiting 2 minutes or getting distracted and doing it again. Like, we want your time to be efficient, and we can make 30 minutes session be the most efficient And sometimes we write programs where we can get 400 reps in 30 minutes. And that's going to be a high work capacity day. That's going to be a developmental day. But it's from a standpoint of training, that's a very simple and short workout, but you're getting a lot of volume in. And then the next day, you might have a little bit longer, or if you still have the 30 minutes, you're going to bring it into a different sort of pace. So you might not be at that high intensity as it was the day prior, but you're still getting a training effect. And this is what's going to allow the stimuluses to rise and fall to meet the demands of what your goals are. And that's really what it comes down to, is changing the stimulus so you can adapt to the right stimulus and have the right adaptations for your goals. If not, if we keep going hard every single day, you're going to kind of hit burnout. You're going to throw off your hormones. You're going to screw a lot of things up. And when I say hormones, a lot of people think, there's sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Yes, that can get thrown off too. But things like insulin is a hormone. These hormones that we have to break down carbohydrates from a metabolic standpoint are going to be thrown off. And when we start throwing off those hormones, the system starts to become bogged down and slows down, and we can't operate functionally. Even as much so to antioxidant production, because of the hormones that we have in the exercise we perform are prominent. So if we have healthy mitochondria, we're going to produce healthy antioxidants to deal with the reactive oxygen species, the damaging species that we create from just breathing in air. And that's what creates DNA mutations and diseases and dysfunction. If we can create a better overall system through workout, through conditioning, through heart health, we're going to help produce a healthier antioxidant system within. And that's not even taking in nutrients. So our body can build that self-defense system from within. We just need to be on an efficient program. And this is where conditioning and cardiovascular work is so important, because it's going to upregulate mitochondria function in the body. And that's where zone 2 cardio, or zone 3, depending where you're at, that 60 to 80%, sometimes I always like 60 to 75% steady state conditioning once or twice a week is going to be ideal for anyone looking for overall health. And that's supplementing with some strength training in between, because that's going to drive the most adaptation. From a general population standpoint, this is what our programs are going to look like. And our next promo code for the gym giveaway is going to be TFL81. So far we have program 27 and TFL81 for the promo codes. Enter those in, collect the points, and enter to win that home gym. But getting back to what we're looking for from a heart rate standpoint is many times things like Orange Theory or CrossFit, they're training too far at one end of the spectrum. They're too far into the high intensity, high realm world. And this has become a problem over the last probably 10 years, is this high intensity thought process. Now, high intensity is not bad, but to be there every workout, because there was research that shows that it was sufficient. One of them being the Tabata, like you go high intensity, it's going to give you a training effect. Yes, it is, but you can't do high intensity every single day. And I think that's where a lot of people are missing the boat. So when they're doing these death workouts where they end up on the floor sweaty every single day and they're getting crushed, well, that's not how it should be, because that's not sustainable. And you're going to drive yourself into poor mechanics, poor posture, poor health, because you're running the system too hot, too fast. These are where you got to pull back and do these lighter regen days where they're more steady state cardio, where you can add some upper body and lower body light circuits in. They can be done in a gym. Pick 10 exercises at lighter weights and kind of move through those movement patterns, not really taxing it heavy. It's same thing. We're looking at that heart rate and muscle mass being used from a standpoint of overall what is going to drive adaptation is the main key. So kind of wrapping up what we kind of talked about at the beginning, first of all, is be smart and keep your exercises very simple. Do your core exercises, do full body exercises, your squats, your deadlifts, your chin-ups, your pull-ups, your push-ups, things that are going to include the most amount of muscle mass within one exercise. Is jumping. If you can jump, jumping is a great way to do it. That was kind of the basis of P90X, was their jumping and high intensity, which is good because it's using a full body standpoint. Put a lot of these programs where you're spending an hour or more and you're getting 5 or 6 exercises and you're wasting time just sitting there recovering. That needs to go out the window. Things need to change. Workouts should be 40 to 45 minutes of, getting in, getting after it and working out. And then you can do your other stuff of foam roll, stretching later. And I think that's another reason, another spot where people kind of get bogged down on these nuanced fancy stuff is, they spend too much time foam rolling, they spend too much time stretching, they spend too much time on exercises that they might have been told that they need to do, but they focus on that too much. And a big one of this is, if anyone's ever gone to physical therapy, they give you a list of exercises that needs to be done. And those exercises usually most of the time are good, but they're just there to get you to the next step. They're not going to be your end all be all exercises. So you do those for 3 exercises or 3 times a day, and then go do your lift. Those aren't going to be your, this is the only exercises I can do. And I think that's gets lost in translation in that kind of transfer over, is those exercises, yeah, they're good, but you got to do things that are going to stimulate more production for more performance and more tissue resiliency to help aid why you're going to PT, right? Those are just the low end exercises to get you to the higher end exercises for performance. Because I'll tell you what, a glute bridge is great, but you do glute bridges every day, that's not going to really help you when you need to get in and out of cars and walk upstairs. Like, it's just not going to do the job. So that stuff needs to be kind of pushed on the back burner. Yeah, 5-10 minutes on a warm-up, good. Then get into the meat and potatoes, which is your strength training, your conditioning, your assault bike, your Peloton, your whatever modality it is. From a standpoint of, this is where most of the work's going to be, and we're going to get after that work. It's going to be hard, and we're going to push the system to that kind of uncomfortable zone to have it realize from a cellular level, once you get to that uncomfortable zone, there's the muscle burn, the legs are burning, your heart rate's up, you kind of feel like crap. At a cellular level, your pH in your system is out of whack. Your cells are being crushed and compressed and pulled and ripped apart. That's what's going to signal your body to change and create newer, stronger tissues, DNA signals to build more resiliency, to create and kill the old cells that are weak and build newer cells, stronger cells, from a metabolic standpoint, from a health standpoint, from a cleaning standpoint, getting these sick, dying cells out and replacing them with new ones. And that's where your majority, 30 minutes of your sessions and work should be. And when it comes to our coaching, and I think the last promo code is going to be Coach 55. What we have to offer here at Think Fitness Life is individualized coaching that's going to drive you to where you want to be. And it's going to be one where it's going to be hard. There's no fluff and easiness to it. Yes, your regeneration days are going to be on the lighter side, but when we get into the developmental days, it's going to kind of kick you square in the face. And that's where we really want to put you, to understand that it's going to be hard work, and they want to understand that that hard work is going to allow you to push past the limits of uncomfortable, that comfort zone, to get out of that comfort crisis that we all are going to want to be in because we're humans. And the next step is going to be in the program, living through those days. And they're usually in the program at first, there's going to be 2 of those days in there. 2 developmental days are really going to kind of push your system and test you to see what you have. And overall, what we're trying to do is we're going to really make you a hard individual that's going to understand that you can handle discomfort in those moments, but also make you more metabolically healthy. And that's the end of the goal for any program that we write, is for metabolic health. Can all your systems run efficiently? Can you, when disease comes, can your immune system fight it off? Can your DNA hold up against forces that might tear tissue, that might break bone? We're building this system up so you can have a good, healthy life. And it all starts with an inquiry questionnaire of asking us how we can help you and where we can drive our programs. And they're going to come to an app. It's going to be very simple. The app's going to be right on your phone. It's going to be logged in. You're going to have your program, your instruction, your coaching from a different levels. And we have different levels of coaching as well. This is going to be a standpoint of what you're looking for out of us from a coach. And we're here to help. So we love answering questions. We're here. If you get our higher tier, we've had clients that are in constant contact with us through previous apps, and they're asking questions in form, and we're checking in with them to whether you just need a base program to get you going. We offer it all, and we look forward to having people drive those questions and drive new programmings to what they want. And how I and Matt can program the best for someone who maybe already is experienced and needs that extra step. We'll go that way. We'll go to the person that just needs to take that first step in driving a new program for change. And a lot of times when that first program comes, people want to ease into it. I'm one on the side of, it's not going to be just easing into it. We're going to kind of go after it right out of the gate. And from a recovery standpoint, you're going to be fine. A lot of people get afraid, if I go too hard at the beginning, then I'm going to get hurt or injured. But we're going to do it in a periodized way that we're going to have hard workouts spaced with less intense workouts, but allow you to recover in between. And this could be said again for weightlifting, strength training, or running, to allow you to get adaptations really quick. Easing into it kind of brings you into a lower pace, and then you build up. But once you get to that buildup of high intensity, you're still going to have that same kind of almost kick in the teeth. We like to do that right off the bat here and have you understand what our expectations are going to be of the programs, and really set the standard high for the program and yourself, because we all need to set that bar high going into it. Now, when we say that, I'm not saying go day one that you have to go absolutely 0 to 100% intensity and do 500 reps in workout one. That's not what we're saying. We're saying is pushing the intensity at a high level, but managing the volume. Over time, that volume will come, and we're going to pour that volume on you. So you're going to have those optimal days where you're going to get it, and it's going to be a developmental day, and it's going to feel like you just got ran over by a bus. You're going to go home, you're going to sit there, you're going to recover, you're going to feel good about what you did and understand how that's going to drive, and knowing the next day you're going to get a lesser intense day, a stimulation day where you're still going to go in and work at it, but it's not going to be the degree of day one, where's that developmental day where you feel like you're just getting beat into the ground. So kind of wrapping this up. So we've had 3 promo codes. We've had TFL 81. So that's going to be our first one. Our second one is going to be program 27. And our third one and last one is coach 55. Those are going to be for the giveaway. But as we wrap things up here, just kind of start thinking about where you want to be with your programming. Where do you want to be with your fitness, your performance? Do we want to start running 10Ks and 5Ks and maybe marathons? Do we want to start getting into more of a cross training of conditioning and strength training and resistance training? Do we want to start maybe be more on the cycling side where Peloton, but we can supplement strength training in to allow your posture, your systems to be able to push more on the bikes and not get stuck in one-dimensional exercise route? And I think what it comes down to overall programming is we got to know is we can't get stuck in one dimension. A lot of times we do, runners do, and then they end up come seeing us for kind of correcting their compensatory patterns of tightness, pain, issues, because their volume is too much on one side and the tissues aren't able to handle that force on the other side. And that's all it comes down to. And we're here from a standpoint for teaching tissues to handle force repetitively over and over again. So you stay healthy, you stay on the path that you want. You don't get injured, you don't feel bad, and you don't fall into poor behavior patterns. And at the end of the day, that's what we do. So as always, any questions you can throw in the comments. We do have some people. It's great to see some people interacting, especially I know it's on the East Coast. It's 9:16 at night. It's a little bit later. So we do appreciate people showing up. If you're on the West Coast, you're a little bit earlier in the night, but still we appreciate taking your time to ask questions, to be present, and to be aware, and to listen to us help coach. And if you do need that next step, feel free, please reach out at thinkfitnesslife.com or drop us a message on Instagram or Facebook. If you're looking for coaching, we can get you squared away on that next program that's going to get you where you want to be. And from all of us here at Think Fitness Life, I think Matt will be back on Sunday. We appreciate you all, and we thank you, and have a great evening.